Hey y'all, welcome to the Second of Strength podcast. My name is Tanner Clark. I went from sitting at a desk to speaking on stage internationally to inspire teenagers and people like you. My goal is simple: help you find your 1 second of strength to walk away from the things that are holding you back, to step into your potential, and ultimately find happiness. Thank you for spending your valuable seconds with me today. Let's go. What is going on? Welcome to the Second of Strength podcast. Wherever you are, thank you for spending your valuable seconds with me. I'm always grateful that you do that. And for those of you who have subscribed to the show so you never miss one, thank you. And if you haven't yet subscribed, hit subscribe so that you won't miss a show wherever you are. And anyway, I'm just always grateful for you, for listening, for being here. And I always hope that these episodes will help you, will help your loved ones, help your teenagers, help the people in your life, because I know that everybody's dealing with something. And so I hope that these episodes kind of hit you in the right spot so that you can make it through your days, make it to the place that you want to be and become better every single day. So thanks for being here. I want to talk a little bit today about digital atrophy, and I'll explain a little bit more what that is in a few minutes. But, you know, a couple of years ago, I was playing basketball on a Saturday morning, and I was playing defense, just, sliding my feet, just playing defense like you play defense. And in one split second, talk about those seconds of strength, but in this moment, one split second, I ruptured my Achilles. I went down. It was very painful. And I knew immediately what had happened. I knew that I had ruptured my Achilles and that I was done playing basketball for the day, certainly for a while. I knew that the Achilles, if you don't know about that injury, the Achilles is a tough injury to come back from. It's tough in the moment. It takes about a year worth of rehab. And so I went home, went to the emergency room. They diagnosed it. About a week later, I had surgery. They like to get you in as quick as possible to have surgery on your Achilles. And so I had surgery, and then I was down, And so I spent about, what was it? It was about 6 weeks immobile to where you can't put any weight on it at all. From then, you're in a boot. And so for about 6 months, you're going from not being able to put any weight to slight weight to about 6 months. You can finally get back to doing everything that you want to do. And so it's this long process. But in the process of rupturing my Achilles and being immobile and having done this surgery, the thing that surprised me most was how quickly my muscles in my leg atrophied. So atrophy, if you don't know what atrophy is, I think so many of you know what that is, but it's when your muscles shrink and weaken. And essentially I went from having two pretty strong, normal active legs to having one leg that was active and one leg that was completely inactive, and the muscle completely shrinks. My calf muscle went from, not that I had amazing calf muscles in the first place, they weren't that spectacular, but I went from having a calf muscle to having no calf muscle. And then the one that surprised me maybe even more than anything was that on the bottom of your heel, you have these calluses and kind of this muscle that's always protected your foot, or like the bones in your leg from the ground, and even that atrophied. So it was hard to even stand after a while because I had no muscles in my legs, I had no muscles in my feet, no padding on my feet. And these are the things that I had to come back from and build back after my surgery to get back to strength, back to being active, back to playing with my kids, back to playing sports. And so that was the process. And I went through this really painful injury, this painful recovery, and then witnessing the muscles in my leg atrophy and go from something to nothing, literally nothing. And I think about that process, and I think about the way the muscle, went through this shrinking and weakening, and I think about that, and I think about how hard it was to come back from. And then I flip that and I look about this digital world that we're in, the digital world that we have created and developed and invited into our lives. And that goes from, TV to video games to smartphones to social media and all the things, these digital devices we let into our lives. And on many levels, they're great. On many levels, they help us. They are tools. They help us learn. They help us grow. They help us become better. We have all this information that we're able to access at any given moment. There's a lot of really great positive things that come from these devices. But I think that we are experiencing in this world a digital atrophy in many of our functions and many of our abilities to process and navigate this world in an appropriate way. And it all comes down to the amount of time that we are spending on our devices and what they have done to our lives. And I think there's a few key areas, and there's probably a lot of areas, but as I think about digital atrophy and the amount of time we're spending on our smartphones and social media and what it's doing to us, there's kind of three key areas that I look at and go, okay, hold on. There's some problems here. Like, we are having problems, and it is creating a long-term impact on us because of the amount of time we're spending on these devices. Or said another way, the muscle, probably our brain, is weakening because of the amount of time we're spending on our devices, and it's limiting our impact, our own impact that we are going to have on our future. And I think about my leg, and I think about the impact that rupturing my Achilles had and the atrophy that it had. My leg is still not full strength. It's not 100%. I'm good. I can run. I can do all those things, but the strength that it was before is not there. And if you look at my two legs from behind, you'll see that my left calf muscle, my left leg, is quite significantly smaller than my right leg still 2 years out from surgery. So, and I think about our brains, and I think about what these devices are doing to us, and we are in a place where, because of the digital atrophy, if we don't step in and take a significant look at our own smartphone daily usage habits, then we stand risk of not being strong enough in the future to overcome the challenges or step into our potential in a way that we want to. And maybe our potential, we can still grow. It's not like the world is over for us, right? We can still grow, but we're going to be up against other people in our lives who maybe don't have that same struggle, that same digital atrophy, right? If I went to go play basketball right now with other people who didn't have the same Achilles injury that I had, there's a good chance that because they don't have that atrophy, they're going to be able to jump higher, be able to do things that I can't do still on a basketball court because of the challenges that I face. So there's three key areas that I think that smartphones are really impacting us, that we need to kind of step in and figure out how to solve it in our own lives, in our own personal lives, so that we can grow and become better every single day. And the first really is focus and attention span. Our focus and our level to our ability to stay focused on a task at hand has weakened so much since smartphones happened. And I think if you just take a quick assessment of your life, a quick assessment of your teenager's life, a quick assessment of your home, I think you'll see this. And I think it stands true, even if you just logically think about it. But there's been studies that show that focus and attention span has been reduced and diminished. There was one study that there was a group of people who were given 20 puzzles that they needed to do, and after 10 puzzles they got to take a break. So there was one group that didn't take a break at all. There was one group that took then there was another group that was split, that some of them took a break, and when they were on their break they used their smartphones. And there was another group that took a break and they could do other things, read a book, do other stuff, but they weren't allowed to be on their smartphones, or they didn't get on their smartphones. And what happened was, the people who used their phone during the break, they took 19% longer to finish all 20 puzzles. And then there was a group of people who didn't even finish. So 22% didn't even finish, didn't even get to finish all the puzzles because of the lack of focus, or they were taken out of focus because of the smartphone usage. And so there's this thing that it does to our brain where it takes us away from the task at hand in a way that we aren't able to refocus in time to get done the things that we need to get done. And there's a study from UC Irvine that said that it takes 23 minutes to refocus after we pick up our phones. or after we're distracted, I should say. It's not just smartphones, but in today's world, we know that smartphones is a big piece of that, distraction. And so it takes 23 minutes to refocus. And here's the crazy thing. There's another study that shows that we pick up our phones 144 times a day. And so if we pick up our phones 144 times a day and then it takes 23 minutes to refocus, I think if you were to do that math, you would find that we're never really focused, because we pick up our phone and then we pick it up again before the 23 minutes is up. So we've already been out of focus. We start to try and work again to get back in focus. We're still out of focus. And so we're creating this world where we just aren't being intentional and aren't able to refocus in the things that we need to get done. And this is the form of digital atrophy that I'm talking about. So if we have a project, we have a homework assignment, we have a project at work, we have things that we're supposed to get done in our home, but we are constantly being taken out of focus, then we'll either be less efficient in getting those things done or never get them done, or it'll just take longer and longer and longer and longer. So we have to think about that. Another thing that it does is one study showed that the inability to unplug creates more anxiety. And that people who constantly check their phones record higher stress levels than those who do it less frequently. And then stress in turn hurts our ability to concentrate. And so you see this this cyclical nature of our smartphones, where we pick up our phones, we feel more anxious, we feel more stress, and then we can't concentrate. And then we just go round and round and round and round and round. And this is the digital atrophy that I'm talking about. This in terms of attention and focus, this is where it is really damaging our ability to grow and be the strongest version of ourselves, because we're not giving ourselves time to be the strongest person, the strongest version of ourselves. We are sitting in a world where we are constantly distracted, constantly out of focus, and it's impacting our ability to become the best version of ourselves. So that's the first one, attention and focus. The second one is creativity. The digital atrophy, or the smartphones in our lives, are creating this digital atrophy around creativity. And so there was one study who showed there was a group of participants that were 18 to 25 years old, and they used this smartphone addiction scale. They call it SAS, and it just kind of determines how addicted you are to your smartphone. And so what they were done is they were assigned a creative task, and this creative task was to come up with alternate uses of everyday objects within a short time frame. So they just had to come up with, call it a wrench. Well, what else could you do with a wrench? And just think creatively about what it is that you could do with that wrench. And so what they found is that individuals with a high SAS, or a high smartphone addiction, or high on that smartphone addiction scale, they performed more poorly in terms of fluency, flexibility, and originality. They just couldn't think creatively enough because of the level of addiction that they had to their smartphones or their devices. And so this is an example of this digital atrophy where, I think one of the greatest resources we have as human beings is that we are creative, right? And you think about everything that's ever been invented in this world, including the smartphone, including a podcast, including whatever it is, a widget, right? Like all of these things came because somebody was creative and took the time to solve that problem. Like whatever the issue was, whatever was going on, they solved this problem. And here we are sitting here saying, well, actually, because of digital atrophy, because of the lack of creativity that a smartphone has, you are going to be less fluent in creativity, less flexible in coming up with something creative, and less original in that. And so you think about how you're growing and how you're stepping into it, and you think about all these things that we need to do as human beings to progress in our lives, or support our families, or support our livelihood, or overcome the teenage world, right? And we need to be creative in that. And we're saying, according to research, that you're actually being less creative because of the time you spend on your smartphone, or the more addicted you are to your smartphone, the more high you score on the smartphone addiction scale, the less creative you are. And so you think about being able to get out of the tough situations, or overcome things, or whether it's for schoolwork or whether it's for work, and overcoming, think of these alternate solutions to solve problems. Well, that is being diminished. That's the digital atrophy that is being caused by these smartphones. So focus, attention span, and creativity are all being limited. And then the third one, and maybe, arguably the worst, is that our social skills are being diminished by these smartphones. And, I know that there's all sort, I get pushback all the time on social media where it's like, no, these are communication. I'm communicating with friends. I'm communicating with people. I'm on Snapchat. I'm going back and forth with my friends. I'm texting with them. I just want to be really clear that is not real life connection. It is one-sided. It feels like it's real, but it's not real. Sending a smiley face to somebody on the other end of a phone is not a real smile, and it is not going to create the same connective emotions in their brain that you hope that it will from like a smile would if you're passing someone on the street, and what that fires up in somebody's brain. And so the social skills are being diminished in that way. And so there was a study at UCLA in the psychology department that they looked at a group of 11 and 12-year-olds, and in one group they were deprived of social media, or I said deprived of digital media, television, all those things, and the other group wasn't deprived of any of that. And what they found is that the group that was deprived of social media for those 5 days, they were more easily or more readily able to detect other people's emotions. And so there's this emotional intelligence that comes from being disconnected from devices. And when we are constantly looking down at devices, even though you may be looking at people on your device and you may be seeing, their emotions and whatever, it is not the same of being connected with someone in real life and seeing their emotions. And so the more time you spend, the less time you're able to read the room, less time you're able to understand what people are going through. And the problem with that is if we can't read the room and connect with people on an emotional level, it gets really hard to level with them and help people overcome the challenges that they're facing. And then vice versa. If you're struggling with stuff, and everyone is, let's face it, everybody has some sort of problem or some sort of challenge that we're dealing with. Well, we've all got these challenges that we're dealing with right now, but because other people are spending so much time on their devices, they don't have the emotional connection to help us through our problems. And so we're creating this world where we're just stuck and almost like have to fend for ourselves. And then the worst part about that is when we have to fend for ourselves because of the challenges that we're facing, we turn to scrolling social media, and the cycle just repeats itself. And so our social skills are experiencing this digital atrophy. We are lessening our social skills, our emotional intelligence, our ability to read people, because we're spending so much time on devices. And so think about that. Think about the tools, the skills, the things that we need to survive this life. And think about the digital atrophy that we are experiencing because of the amount of time we're spending on devices. And you start to witness or realize pretty quick that it's a lot. It's a lot. And the things that we are limiting in our life because of devices is impacting us much more than anything we're gaining because we're spending time on our devices, right? Because of the scroll. So now here's the question. So what? What do we do? One, I guess, is it a big deal? And two, what do we do about it? And I think that it is a big deal. I think that over time, and in isolation, you may look at it and go, okay, not a big deal. But over time, and you look at the generations of people where we're at now, you look 10 years down the road, and you look even further than that down the road, and generations to come, and what is this going to do to all of them? And it's just going to create more and more of a problem. And I always think that if you want to get ahead in life, you want to get ahead in school, you want to get ahead in work, in sports, in academics, whatever it is, you want to get ahead in life, do the opposite that everyone else is doing. And if everybody is spending so much time on their phones, spend less time on yours, because it will set you apart in more ways than you can possibly imagine just by spending less time on your device. It is the one clear way that you can differentiate yourself and get ahead of everybody else that is in your same peer group. So that's the first thing. So spend less time. But I think that if we have screen-free time and establish these moments of screen-free time in our life, then we are going to set ourselves apart from everyone else. And so what does that look like? You could, there's one study that shows that 40% of people check their device within 5 minutes of waking up. Well, what if you didn't? What if you put your phone outside of your room to start? You don't even have it in your room at night. There's another study that said, I think 60% of people check their phone in the middle of the night. What if it wasn't in your room at all, right? And you could spend less time from it. So don't have it in your room. What if you went on a detox? What if you went an entire day without it? There's a Colin O'Brady who walked across the first solo expedition, I think, across Antarctica. He has a book called The 12-Hour Walk. And the premise behind the book is just go on a walk for 12 hours. No phones, no anything, no distraction. Just go walk, just be with your thoughts. And kind of the premise behind that falls into what I'm talking about here is it's strengthening your muscles after digital atrophy, after the challenges that we're facing. Because when I went through my Achilles rupture and I had to come back from that and fight my way back, it was hard. But the only way to do it was intentional time and effort. The only way to do it was be in physical therapy, strengthen it, do squats, do what do you call them? Calf raises. I had to do all of these things and continue to do them so that my muscle could continue to grow. So if we are experiencing digital atrophy and our focus, our creativity, our social skills are diminishing, then spending less time on our phone and practicing those things are what is going to get us stronger and stronger and stronger. So have intentional time where you are focused without your phone. Have intentional time where you are exploring your creativity, whether that is, maybe that's an instrument or learning an instrument. Maybe that's drawing. Maybe that's doodling. Maybe that is anything like that, or challenging yourself to come up with a solution of how to use a device for something else. A wrench. What else could a wrench be used for? Think about these different ways that you can experience and grow your creativity, and then challenge your social skills. Just be without your phone. Just be present in the moments that require your presence. Just be there. Be there with your friends, and even if they're on your phone, just be without it. And I promise it'll start to change everything in your life. And the more you're doing that, the more you'll be emotionally connected to the people in your life, and you'll be able to help them get through the things that they're going through. They will look to you for support because you're the one that has the high level of emotional intelligence, because you're not spending your time on your phone. So digital atrophy, I think it's real. I think that we are experiencing it at high levels. I think that from adolescence all the way up to adulthood, people are experiencing digital atrophy in ways that is probably compounding and probably increasing in scale as we move on. And so it's time we step back and we start strengthening our brains and strengthening the muscles to get away from the digital attachment that we have. And it is the one way that will help set us apart from everybody else, just because we're spending less time on our phones. So I hope that helps. Please share this episode if it's something that helped you, or you think it might help somebody else. Share it, text it to them, share it on social media. If you share it on social media, tag me at @RealTannerClark. And love to hear from you. Shoot me a message on Instagram. Let me know that this helped you. And as always, I'll leave you the same way I leave you every single time. Go find your 1 second of strength and be happy. Thank you for listening to today's episode. I hope it helped you. If you haven't already, hit subscribe so you never miss another episode, and leave a review for the show. And as always, go find your 1 second of strength and be happy.